The Basilica of St. Peter's, crowned by the magnificent dome of Michelangelo, dominates the skyline of Rome. But this is not a film about Rome, for in spite of its commanding position, St. Peter's is not a part of the Italian capital. It belongs rather to that city within a city, the Vatican. In fact, the Vatican City is not just a city, but the world's smallest state, a sort of holy principality hemmed in on all sides by the bustle of modern Rome. Although it's small in size, no more than 1/6 of a square mile, the Vatican has power and influence which nations 1,000 times its size might envy. For this is not just another stop on the tourist's trip round Rome, but the spiritual focus of more than 500 million Catholics around the globe. There is a physical separation between Rome and the state within it. This is St. Anne's Gate, one of 3 entrances to the Vatican. All of them are guarded. All of them close at 11 o'clock every night. But there are no frontier regulations in the Vatican, and anyone who has business inside, or who simply wants to see the Pope, is free to enter. From the top of St. Peter's Terrace, Christ and his stone apostles look out on a world where the Catholic faith, like most other religions, is fighting a hard battle with enemies such as communism, materialism, and sheer disbelief. Within itself, the Church is divided on all sorts of modern problems, from birth control to politics. As a body which has always leaned heavily on tradition and authority, it feels these conflicts all the more deeply now. On the other hand, it is precisely this sense of moral continuity that many Catholics seek. In an age of rapid social change and political upheaval, they welcome the Church's attempt to impose order and discipline. The guidance they seek comes ultimately from here, home of the man they believe to be Christ's representative on earth. The pontifical gendarmes are the Vatican's police force, 100 strong. As the streets of the Holy See are not exactly crawling with ruffians and wrongdoers, their main functions are ceremonial work and traffic control. There are in fact 2 jails in the Vatican, but both are usually empty. Many gendarmes are former guards from the Quirinale Palace. Having served their president, they move on to serve their pontiff. The best known and certainly the most spectacular troops in the Vatican are of course the Swiss Guards. Their splendid uniform is said to have been designed by Michelangelo, although others give the credit to Raphael. A third version says it began after a battle, when Swiss troops mended their tattered uniforms with coloured silk torn from the enemy's pavilions. The force grew from the Swiss mercenaries who fought for the Holy See in the 14th century. Today, the Guards are still exclusively Swiss. Candidates must be bachelors, Catholics, and of good character. Oddly enough, recruiting has to be done confidentially, for under normal circumstances, any Swiss serving in a foreign army loses his nationality. An exception is made in the case of the Vatican, providing there's no publicity. The present strength of the force is about 120. They're poorly paid by Swiss standards and therefore tend to attract only devout Catholics or young men who want a spell in Rome. If they do stay as long as 10 years, they get a small pension, payable in Swiss francs. It's a long time since the Swiss Guards did any actual fighting for the Pope. In fact, in their 448-year history, they have only ever fought one battle, and that was in 1527, when all but 42 of them died defending Pope Clement VII during the Bourbon sack of Rome. There are real weapons in the armory, but nowadays, of course, the guards are more of a tourist attraction than effective guardians of His Holiness. Alone among modern heads of state, the Pope has nothing to fear from armed revolution or coup d'etat. The Church today has other enemies. The Vatican boasts a total population of just over 1,000, and like any other independent state, it has to look after them. Its hospital is capable of treating everybody, from babes in arms to the Pope himself if necessary. The attention is not always appreciated. The care of bodies as well as souls has been the Church's self-appointed task ever since its earliest days. In the modern world, of course, this task has expanded enormously and has pushed the Church into areas where religion and politics mingle. The Vatican is now the administrative centre for the Church's worldwide campaign against hunger, poverty and disease. The Vatican's own railway station is unique in that it has no ticket office and no passenger trains. The station was built after the Lateran Treaty of 1929, which gave the Vatican its sovereign, independent status. It was thought that the railway would be a useful means of transport for the popes, who had not left the Holy See since 1870 in protest against the Italian state's seizure of the papal lands. The popes, however, did less travelling than was expected, at least until recent years, when they've travelled by air rather than rail. After a period of glorious service during World War II, when it ferried relief supplies, the railway fell into virtual disuse. It now provides only a tiny fraction of the Vatican's needs. Shopping facilities within the Vatican are restricted, to say the least, being limited to one petrol station, a supermarket, and the Vatican pharmacy. There's no income tax or purchase tax in the Vatican, and as there are no customs regulations either, a certain amount of illicit trade in items like whiskey and cigarettes has been inevitable. Things became so bad 10 years ago that the authorities had to bring in stricter controls. The post office is one of the busiest offices in the whole of the Vatican. Even if it were not an independent state, the Holy See would need a postal department all to itself to cope with the vast flood of mail that arrives each day from every corner of the globe. The Pope himself receives around 1,000 letters a day. As the headquarters of a worldwide organization, the Vatican is in the communications business in a very big way, and it does not stop at the written word.
ላውዴቱር ኢየሱስ ክርስቶስ ይትባረክ ኢየሱስ ክርስቶስ። ክቡራን አድማጮቻችን እንደምን አመሻችሁ።
工業の技術者たちの会議に参加しているノートルダムの有名な 説教家たちである一人の神父です。
Estimados oyentes, desde la Ciudad del Vaticano, muy buenas noches.
Pablo VI.
This is the Radio Vatican, broadcasting in English to India and Southeast Asia. Report from the Vatican. Pakistan has a new ambassador to the Holy See.
In Europe. Radio
This
Vatican
morning, the Holy
broadcasts
Father
in every
received the newly
language
appointed
on 24
Pakistani
short
ambassador
and
to the
3
Holy
medium
See,
wavelengths.
His Excellency
It's sometimes
Afzal
referred
Iqbal.
to as the Pope's
In
spiritual
replying to the ambassador's
powerhouse.
address, His
One of the
Holiness said,
station's lesser-known uses
"We
is
accept
as a
with
direct
sincere
private
pleasure
radio
the
link
letters
between the
accrediting Your
Vatican
Excellency
and
as
papal
Ambassador
representatives
Extraordinary
abroad.
and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Pakistan to the Holy See. In the performance of your important duties, we promise you our understanding and our collaboration."
The Osservatore Romano is the Vatican's own semi-official daily newspaper. On major stories, Pope Paul himself has been known to check the proof before publication. It's widely distributed throughout Italy and has weekly foreign language editions. The paper's sometimes accused of failing to keep up with the changing face of Catholicism and of being too keen to avoid controversy. In a country famous for its gardens, those of the Vatican are among the best. They've been loved by many popes over the last 100 years or so as an ideal place for quiet reflection and prayer. Pius XI also took a practical interest in them, laying down 50 miles of pipes to ensure they were adequately watered. It's said that the Vatican lawns are the only grass in Rome that remains green and fresh right through the hot Italian summer. The gardens are dotted with fountains and pieces of sculpture. This one, the Aquiloni fountain, dates from the 16th century, being finally completed in 1610 under Pius V. Pius was born Prince Borghese, and the eagle is part of the family crest. One of the most delightful features of the gardens is the Cascina. Its name means little house, and it was commissioned by Pius IV as a summer residence. Built between 1558 and 1562 by Piero Liguria, the Cascina is a miniature masterpiece of Baroque architecture. Pius IV used the Cascina for discussions on poetry and philosophy, and it's still a seat of learning today, housing the Pontifical Academy of Sciences. Another fine piece in the gardens is this bronze fountain in the form of a galleon. It was built in 1680. At one end of the gardens is the Vatican Picture Gallery, where nearly 400 old masters are on public display. The collection includes priceless works by Raphael, Titian, Caravaggio, and Leonardo da Vinci. Not every part of the Vatican is old. This is the new museum building, whose clean modern lines are a striking contrast with most of the Vatican's architecture. The decorative statues, however, provide a link with older styles. Across this courtyard stands one of the Vatican's most important buildings, the library. Here, the history and teachings of the Church are recorded in over 1 million printed volumes and many thousands of priceless manuscripts. Scholars and theological students from all over the world come here to steep themselves in the details of centuries-old facts and beliefs. Among the archives are filed original documents concerning some of the great events in world history. The dossier of Galileo's trial is kept here. So is the Concordat agreed between Napoleon and Pius VII, and the petition of Henry VIII of England, asking for the dissolution of his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. For nearly 1700 years, a church has stood on the site of St. Peter's. Today, the Vatican has to meet the challenge of a secular and scientific age whose discoveries seem increasingly to undermine traditional teaching and dogma. The Vatican has also to cope with the complex social problems of a modern society. In Italy alone, it's under pressure to allow divorce, and the government is insisting that it starts paying taxes on its Italian holdings. The term Vatican comes from a word meaning foresight. In the decades ahead, the keeper of the keys of St. Peter's will need to show as much of that quality as possible.